Every CIO needs to understand their theory of the business. And then if you understand that theory of the business and apply that to the job that you do, then you understand why you exist, right? This is why I exist, to drive that performance, quality, and uptime in the business. I start to think about IT is making hardware cool again. And so therefore, we're the cool kids, right? If you have to be able to change at speed to win, you have to have a composable architecture. And a composable architecture that's put together beautifully is like a beautiful jazz band. You don't have just one instrument in a jazz band. You have multiple instruments in a jazz band. A composable mindset will actually help you create beautiful music, systems that work together that deliver amazing outcomes.
Welcome to the new automation mindset, where AI, automation, and integration come together. I'm your host, Markus Zirn, and as Chief Strategy Officer and part of the founding executive team at Workato, it is my mission to find these top innovators in AI, automation, and integration and share their journeys with all of you. This podcast is inspired by the Wall Street Journal best-selling book with the same title, written by Workato CEO Vijay Tella. If you would like a free copy of the book, be sure to listen for a special offer at the end of today's episode. So for today's show, I have as guest with me Earl Newsome, CIO of Cummins. And actually not just Cummins, but Earl has been CXO at Cummins, at Linde, at Estee Lauder, so all S&P 500 companies, so lots and lots of experience. Going back, he was a partner at Deloitte and then started off as a West Point graduate. So really, really excited about that. So Earl, so Cummins, obviously everybody knows Cummins for the diesel engines, like in trucks, but it's much more than trucks. It's construction, it's marine. Tell us a little bit about your business, Cummins business. And what I'm specifically interested in is kind of like the business processes, how you're adding value to the business with technology.
Sure, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, Markus. And I'm happy to share things about Cummins. And when we think about Cummins, the best way to think about Cummins is that our focus is really on powering a more prosperous world. And we do so through several business units. We have our engine business unit, which you mentioned there, that produces engines for multiple end uses. But we also have our components business, which provides components that surround those engines. We have our distribution business, which services and supports those engines. We have a power systems business, which actually takes those engines and puts them into end uses for gensets and things like that. And then we have our Accelera business, which is our newest business, which is focused on new power, that being battery electric and hydrogen. And so I think what's really exciting about Cummins is Cummins, as you mentioned, was a diesel company, but Cummins has also now expanded itself to be not just a diesel company, but a power company, right? And so we are working on how we're powering a more prosperous world by really focusing on destination zero technologies and what those technologies can help bring to bear for all of our customers and for the world. All right. And from a business process standpoint, and how does IT and technology bring those business processes to bear? I think it's across multiple fronts. We have technology in our plants. We have over 150 plants around the world producing the components and engines that I just mentioned. We have over 9,000 points of service around the world, so where you can come in and get your engine serviced as an OEM customer. And so our business systems support the manufacturing of our goods, the support and quality of our goods, because what our customers really want is uptime, right? And so through our robust power and robust processes, we provide amazing amounts of uptime for our customers. Because that's what they're really buying is performance, quality, and uptime from Cummins. And I really talk about that, and I think that's really the theory of our business, right? We offer the performance to get the job done, right? Whether it's the torque to move the truck, the rail, the boat, We do it. We produce quality products that are designed to be around for many years. Some of our products get to 20,000 hours, and then we provide robust uptime, right? Through an amazing, support network of 9,000 points of service and a robust cybersecurity program that keeps our business systems running. So I think all of that is what differentiates Cummins, and that's what we provide across the energy diversity spectrum.
So it's really all about, supply chain transparency, but then also just amazing service, maybe even, predictive maintenance or those kind of things when the uptime really matters so much, right? Is this kind of what you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to use technology to help us, move from, descriptive types of predictive performance that are descriptive, actions to predictive and prescriptive actions. And so when you think about, prognostics and using telematics to understand when an engine might fail, the more prescriptive you can get with that, the better it is for our customers. And that's really where technology can make a difference. And that's why onboard diagnostics and telematics is essential in the power and mobility and transportation sector, where uptime counts so much. You want to be really predictive and really create prognostics based upon telematics. And that's where we're making lots of investments and really trying to focus on how do we provide those types of prognostics to help keep our customers running.
Perfect. So I obviously researched a little bit about you, and I've seen some talks. You highlighted a strategy plus your IT strategy at Cummins, and I just happened to notice how you put the business first with everything. I think every single item of your IT strategy, it started with the business. So I was trying to mirror this against a lot of other CIOs we work with, maybe here in Silicon Valley. There's this trend where people actually saying like, hey, we don't want to be called CIOs anymore. We want to be called the heads of business technology, or they're making the same connection to the business that you're doing. Tell me, how do you think about this? Or maybe, what would be your ideal title? Is it CIO? Is it something else? Just curious.
I think that's a great question. And I'll start with a little bit about the pivot and my interest in business and how I think IT drives business. And I think every CIO, and we'll start out with that term, needs to understand their theory of the business, right? And so for me, understanding the theory of the business ought to be your first job as a technology leader inside any organization. First, understand how we make money, right? And the way Cummins makes money, and this is my theory of the business as it relates to IT, is that Cummins offers that better performance, quality, and uptime to our customers than they can do by themselves or get from another third party. That's why Cummins wins in the marketplace, right? And then if you understand that theory of the business, then you understand how can you help execute that theory of the business or deliver that theory of the business. How can IT help drive performance in the business? How can we drive better quality? How can we help drive, the uptime that our customers need? And so when you think about the theory of the business, and apply that to the job that you do, then you understand why you exist, right? This is why I exist, to drive that performance, quality, and uptime in the business. And what's happening in the industry, and so I got my business hat on, then I got to have my industry hat on. So I need to understand what's happening in our industry. And I use the word ACE. And this is a term that means the power industry is becoming much more automated, much more connected, much more energy diverse, right? And so it's becoming automated. I call it hyper automated, where it's becoming very personal, like how your phone, how you use your power in your car or your home or your phone is becoming very personalized. So you can maximize the use of that power and the length and the duration of that power. And the only way we get that is through hyperconnectivity. So everything's becoming connected, billions and billions of connected parts. And it's becoming very energy diverse, from fossil-based fuels, as you talked about in the beginning, to non-fossil-based fuels like biofuels, to battery electric, to hydrogen. And so now what's happening in the industry is this theme called ACE, And PQU is what we're known for. Now that same expectation that you have in the diesel side of that energy diversity spectrum is now being expected across all forms of that energy diversity spectrum. So Cummins won in the diesel space, and Cummins will win, in the energy diversity space with hydrogen and battery electric by applying that PQU. And so if you understand, the theory of business, you understand, how your industry operates, I think you become a quad deep executive. And so to me, quad deep executives are this, business intelligence, knowing how your business makes money, industry intelligence, knowing how you compete and win in the industry and what you chose to operate in, emotional intelligence, right, knowing how people think and feel, and then technical intelligence was becoming a master at your craft, right? And if we can do those things, then I think we become presidents of technology. So we move from, this idea of the notion of just being focused on technology, right? And you're focused on being a CIO to now you're the president of technology. You're aligned with that theory of the business. You understand how your industry operates. You work and you get connected with people, as well as being a technical expert. You're a quad deep executive, and now you're a president, right? And you're focused on helping your business succeed, and your hope is helping on helping your customers succeed and helping your employees succeed. And if you're doing all of that, then you're truly a president of technology.
I like that. I like that a lot. We put out this book, The New Automation Mindset, right? One of the chapters is the growth mindset. Mm-hmm. It seems to me like in the past, when you talk to CIOs or IT executives, a lot was about, keeping the lights on. It's kind of like, I think it's the opposite of growth mindset. It's like, the just very conservative approach to IT. I think the way you talk about it, about industry trends, about technology having such a big impact also on differentiation of the company, to me, that really shows like a growth mindset. I'm just curious, in your experience, when you think about that, I mean, do you feel that way also? That you see, like among your colleagues, maybe, do you see that there's some that maybe have more of a growth mindset than others, and maybe does that mirror effectiveness as a president of technology? How do you look at that, the growth mindset?
I think it's a great challenge. And I think the growth mindset is clearly applicable. I also think you have to have the beginner's mind, right? You want to approach things anew. You want to challenge yourself. So, and I think the growth mindset is absolutely necessary in today's day and age, especially with the worlds of automation, as I talked about, and as automation becomes even automated, artificial intelligence, right, or assistive intelligence, depending on where you think we are on the road to, this idea about the singularity, But I think, as we think about software eating the world, and Mark Andreessen, when he said that, I think software is eating the world today, right? And so you have to move from being a caretaker to actually being a harvester, right? To tie to the growth mindset. You're no longer a caretaker. You need to harvest the value of technology, right? To even carry on the analogy of growing, you have to plant those seeds, and you've got to water those seeds, and then you've got to grow those seeds. And not only grow, right, you have to harvest, right, in order to get the full value of technology in your business, and how software is going to eat your industry. So how is software going to eat your industry? And then if you understand that, then you can understand what seeds do you plant, where do you plant those seeds? How do you get those seeds to grow? And then how do you harvest the benefit of that technology embedded in your business? And I actually think this actually takes us down a different path. And I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, right? And this idea, we're techies and we're nerdy, and we are, sometimes we wore a lot of hush puppies, and our pants didn't always go all the way down to cover our socks. But now that's cool, right? If you're having high water pants, that's actually pretty cool. And so I start to think about when IT is making hardware cool again, and so therefore we're the cool kids, right? And so you think about software eating your industry. Now you should come from that caretaker role, or you were in the first, in the basement, making sure the mainframe stayed on. So now you got to be next to that corner office, helping to your company take advantage of software eating this world and you harvesting the value of software eating your industry, whatever that might be.
No, it totally, I think I totally see that. I mean, I don't think there's been a more exciting time than now to be like this CIO or president of technology, because, you know, if someone knows about software eating the world in a company, that's the person, right? So tell me a little bit. I'm actually curious. So if we take this on, there's obviously, so software's eating the world, and then all of last year, everyone was crazed up about artificial intelligence. How do you think about that? Is that like another level of software eating the world? Or, you know, what do you guys doing at Cummins about AI, generative AI? How do you think about that?
That's a great question. So when I think about generative AI, and I love this idea about, you know, software eating the world and, you know, taking that vernacular and you know, I go to the movie Terminator. Right. And the version of Terminator, I think the number was Terminator 3, I believe it was Rise of the Machines. And in this episode of Terminator, and I think it was at the end when he's headed down, the character John Connor is going to try to stop Judgment Day. Right. So he's in Arizona, finds this bunker, right, where he believes, you know, Skynet is, and he's going to go blow up Skynet. So he walks into, you know, the bunker, getting ready to save the day. And he walks in this bunker and he sees a bunch of old computer hardware, like these paper tapes and punch cards and things like that. And then he realizes, you know, this is not Skynet, right? You know, this is some old computer thing, right? And then he comes to this realization that I wasn't meant to stop Judgment Day. I was meant to survive Judgment Day. And so I think the same way with AI. We're not meant to stop AI. And we're not meant only merely to survive AI, we're meant to thrive with AI. And so I think we ought to have a world where we're thriving with AI, and it's bots plus humans makes us exponential. And so to me, it's about leveraging this notion, not replacement AI, even though there will be parts of that. It'll be more about augmentation AI, right? Where we're making humans exponential by using collaborative AI and collaborative models where AI works with us to make us exponential. Because I think it's the journey to exponentiality that we're going to have if we take the advantage and harvest the growth and the seeds and the opportunity with AI, we'll become much more exponential. And so the way that I think about it is like this. And so if we pivot from a survival mindset to a thrive mindset with AI, then we take a positive view of AI. We understand that AI has some challenges. You know, it can be wrong. It can hallucinate. You know, it can use copyrighted materials. It can be biased. The antidote for all of that is to put a human in the loop, right? And so we need to make sure, and again, if we're thinking about collaborative AI and not replacement AI, and thriving with AI, the human in the loop becomes a necessary part of that equation. And then the human takes on responsibility for the tool. I often talk about, you know, the wielder of a hammer. You know, did the hammer break the glass, or did the person who wielded the hammer break the glass, right? You know, and so, you know, it becomes the responsibility of the wielder of the tool to ensure that that tool is used in the most effective way possible. So hence, that's why a human must be in the loop to take the maximum advantage and keep AI responsible and keep the human in the loop, or at least beside the loop, to validate that the AI is taking the right answers or the right direction. And so if you can do that, keep the human in the loop, then I think we can unleash the full power of AI. And some of the things that we're thinking about is co-pilots, right? So having a co-pilot for every role in the organization, right? You have a co-pilot for the CEO down to a co-pilot for the plant engineer, right? And that plant engineer co-pilot will help that plant engineer get the optimal value out of an operation on the plant floor. You know, we will then move. Also, a second use case that we're thinking about is how to move from, ALD, analysis-led design, to AILD, where we're using the AI to help us think about design alternatives from everything from your supply chain to a factory, to a line on a factory, to a engineer working on a design of a part. We can use AI to actually help us test possibilities out, right? And run simulations using AI. A third use case is, and people are doing this right now with this intelligent summarization. So how do we summarize better? How do we drive? Another use case is productivity for software and hardware engineers and make them more productive in the use of their job. Then how do we change the interactions with our customers by providing chat and prompt-based interfaces to service delivery? So all of those things, I think, are ways for us to maximize the value of AI. We're going to maximize it through various tools. We're going to get some tools where it's going to come part of the tool, like off-the-shelf software will come with AI embedded in it. So we need to know about that. We'll be able to leverage our own internal models by using some of the cloud suppliers that we use. And we're also going to have some of the public models that are out there that are going to be equally useful for certain purposes, as long as they're used safely. And so that's when I think about AI, is this idea about moving from fear, through survival to thriving with AI and helping it make us all exponential.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really interesting. All the use cases that we're seeing with AI, I can't think of anyone, definitely generative AI, I can't think of anyone where there isn't a human in the loop. There's always an approval step. That seems, I mean, as you said, it makes sense, right? You don't want to, there might be all the downsides and so on, the hallucinations. You want to make sure that it's much better to have generative AI do like 90% of the work and then look over it once more than just, maybe get a wrong mistake. You don't do this with a coworker or like a young intern either, to just take all the work and just do it. I mean, you have to supervise but it is interesting. I mean, it seems to me like the wrong attitude would be to fight it. I mean, if the story I always tell is my 15-year-old son, he had like a biology essay to write. And so he typed it into ChatGPT, and what came out, we both looked at each other and we said, like, you can't hand that in. I mean, everybody will know that you didn't do this. It's just too good, right? but I can also see, like, all the other students who don't use it. I mean, they're a serious disadvantage. So, I mean, if you don't use it, I think that's the biggest peril almost for the future. I mean, you gotta find ways to include it because it's just so powerful.
I agree, and I think that there's this is going to be the emergence of the new roles, right? And so I think, and this is where I even used, AI or generative AI to kind of do some research on, whether or not AI will disrupt ourselves or not. And so the idea is what you can do with these new roles, whether you're, a prompt engineer or a fine tuner or a large language model builder. I think there's going to be a new role, and I'm calling this new role the AI artist, right? And it'll be artistry, right? And so the AI artist was going to take all these different AI tools and models and combine them in new and unique ways to create an amazing outcome. I think about it like, if you remember the AlphaGo story and how move 37 and move 78. So move 37 was a predictable move that a human wouldn't have seen. And when the machine made the move 37, people would say, oh, wow, that was an amazing move, right? And it was one of 1,000, right? That was predictable, but the machine found it, right? But then move 78 was the move that the human made that was not predictable, and that actually sent the machine into a tizzy, right? I think that was game 4 that he actually won. The player won that, by move 78. And so I believe there's always going to be move 37s where the machine's going to do something because it can think 1,000 times, but there's always going to be move 78 where the human's going to be able to do something that the machine didn't think about. And so when you think about this idea of this AI artist, the AI artist is going to be the person who's going to be doing these move 78s and saying, I'm going to take this model and do this with it. I'm going to take the output of that model, put it into this model and see what it does with it. I'm going to take the output of that and put it into this model. And then I'm going to do something with the third output. That artistry, those strokes, if you will, of using the models as strokes, as things on a canvas, I think it'd be amazing. In fact, that I did something where I asked the one of the models to give me some numbers on, unemployment rate over the last 20 years, what was the technology changes, what was the impact on the OCI rate and population growth. And I took those answers and stuck it to another model and say, create a graph from it. And it was beautiful. And it gave me a graph. And much like, you talk about your son's, report, it would have taken an analyst, 60 days to come up with this graph. I did it in 7 minutes, and so that's the power. I think you're right. I mean, we have to unleash it. We have to work within it. And I think we have to be the artist, right, that use these models to create these new amazing outcomes. And we can do it. We have the ability. And I think that's going to be a new role. And hopefully, someone out there, some university hears this and starts to create a role around, we're going to create these AI artists.
So let me stay on that topic, artistry, because I think there is. So again, this comes down to, I think there was a feature that Accenture did with you, and you talked about composability, and to us at Workato, it's a huge deal, the composable enterprise. In fact, we actually our head of research is Massimo Pessini. He was a long-term Gartner analyst, actually part of the team that came up with the enterprise composition, and making the bridge to art. This is about like playing jazz in IT, in a way. Like, it used to be that, when you came in as the CIO, it was like you did these big projects. You put in a new ERP system, or you replaced it, or you put in a CRM project and so on. But now with this composition, there's no tools. There's no new ways to do things, to kind of taking what you have and making something better of it. And who knows, maybe infusing some AI in the middle of it. Tell us a little bit about how you think about composability, composition as an IT tool, and what does it mean for you to get the job done as a CIO?
Thank you much for that. I mean, the way that I think about it is this way, is that I think composability is an essential way that we're going to be able to deliver value in IT. I mean, the world is changing much too fast, right? The speed of change is much too fast for you to believe that a monolithic approach to things is going to help you win the world that software's eating, right? Just going back, software's eating the world. Software's eating it at such a pace that, your monolithic, view of the world back to the old IT in the basement, nurturing the water-cooled mainframe machine, to now you have the same computing power on your wrist. The idea is that we know that we have to be composable. And we know not one size fits all. We know that businesses are changing and morphing at all time. That if you're not changing, you're dead, kind of thing. And so this idea is, change is continuous. So we need to be designing our systems to live in a world of continuous change, right? And the only way you're going to do that is with composability, right? And so in my mindset, you've got to have this Lego-like mindset where we're building these building blocks that can interconnect with each other, that present certain services within each of those Lego blocks. We assemble those services or capabilities, either at the hardware level, the services level, or even the application level, right, to deliver new business outcomes, for our businesses as they live in this changing world. And the person who could change at speed will win, right? And if you have to be able to change at speed to win, you have to have a composable architecture. And a composable architecture that's put together beautifully is like a beautiful jazz band. I often think about it. You don't have just one instrument in a jazz band. You have multiple instruments in a jazz band. And you can, you see these things where you can bring beautiful music together. In fact, my mother is part of, and bless her soul, she's passed, but she was able to bring Martin Luther King Day to Arizona by bringing a orchestra and a steel drum band together to create music for MLK Day celebration, try to bring, disparate people together. You have the Caribbean steel band and you have the beautiful Philharmonic Orchestra playing together, right? Making beautiful music. That's the power of composability. Not only can it help you as a business move at the speed of change, it can actually bring people together to help them build a unified culture and a unified force to bring together change for good, right? And so that's really winning with the power of difference, right? And that's one of the things we talk about at Cummins is the power of diversity. And that power of diversity helps you win with the power of difference. I think that was my mom doing it in Arizona to help bring Martin Luther King Day. And that's us doing it with systems, bringing those powerful systems together, those differences within our systems together to build and deliver unique business outcomes. That's how we win with the power of difference. And so I think, practicing composability, practicing interoperability, interchangeability, all of those things help you bring together the power of the difference in the capabilities in your systems to win. And so the monolithic mindset is not going to get you there, not let you move at the speed of change. A composable mindset will actually help you create beautiful music, systems that work together that deliver amazing outcomes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, when you talk about IT, right, the interoperability, it kind of sounds, nerdy, techie. But if you think about it, right, if you make that comparison there, think of the mainframe, like the one mainframe, the monolith, that's like monoculture in agriculture. I think we all know now that that's not the best thing, right? I think we all love fusion cuisine, right? Where different things, just like your mom, brought different artists together. I think we love cuisine where things mix up together. It's just more tasty in a way. And then I know you founded the Tech Pact, and that's about diversity of people. And it seems to me really what we're talking about here is like diversity of technology, just coming together and forming it into something more beautiful, and instead of just ripping everything out and replacing with just one thing. It somehow, it just makes sense, right? So I'm curious. We found staying on this topic of, I think it comes down to culture, right? I found this study that MIT actually does. It's called the Culture 500. And so what they do is they look at all the big companies and actually categorize them. It's on the internet. Everyone can look it up. It's Sloan Review, the Culture 500. So Cummins is on there, and it shows that Cummins does really, really well on diversity. So that seems to be a strength of Cummins. You did mention that who wins at the end is who can make that composability happen the fastest, right? Agility, it's probably maybe one of the things that Cummins still has to improve. How do you think about it? If you look at the Cummins culture and then now this ideal of composability, like what are you thinking about?
I think that's a great observation. And Cummins has a powerful, powerful culture, one that I think resonates a lot in the world of companies. And we think about how Cummins wins with the power of difference and how we bring our diversity to bear. And I'd like to go back just a little bit to that statement because J. Irwin Miller, is credited for a lot for the work that Cummins has done in this space. And he's one of our former CEOs. And I'm going to paraphrase what he said and what he meant. But when he talked about the power of diversity, he looked at it as, if I only recruit from a subset of the population, I'm doing myself a disservice. So his winning with the power of difference is I want to look at everyone. I want to have the ability to have the very best talent work at my company. In order for me to do that, I've got to look at everyone, right? Because if I only look at a subset of that population, I'm only doing myself a disservice. And so he led with this idea that we want to get the very best talent that's out there. And so when I think about how Cummins is going to be agile and how Cummins is going to continue to modernize, the way that we look at things is we're going to look at all of these available disciplines. We're going to get the very best people, and the very best people, and we pride ourselves in our ability, to work and nurture and create belonging with our employees, and with that effort coming together, I think, we will be able to harvest, that power difference to move at the speed we need to move, to win in the marketplaces we choose to operate in. And so, and maybe digging a little bit back on, the tech pack, and thank you for your mention there. And one of the things I want to say in this power of winning, with the power of difference, is that, the tech pack, we founded ourselves and we set ourselves up to be, focused on building a world where anybody who has a vision for technology ought to have the ability to succeed. And that's this power of abundance. And we think this abundance mindset is a winning mindset. And so anybody who has a passion for technology ought to have the ability to succeed. And we'll do that through a two-factor mission statement. We're going to reduce the digital divide in some meaningful way, over this decade. And we want to increase the representation of underrepresented communities within the technology sector over that same period of time. And part of the things that we do to try to make that a reality is we have really three levers. The first lever is, I call it the membership lever. And that is, it's a pledge-based organization. So you can take the pledge at techpack.org. You can share it with your network. But most importantly, you can start living the pledge by doing this +1. And this is where I think the power of difference can be leveraged. And +1 just really asks you to do these things. Just add one to something that you do every day on a regular basis. You choose the regular basis, right? Either it's daily, weekly, monthly, annually, you pick that basis. And adding one just means read a book you wouldn't otherwise read, listen to a song you wouldn't otherwise listen to, take someone to lunch that you wouldn't otherwise take to lunch, right? Work with a vendor that you wouldn't otherwise work with, add a candidate to a slate that you wouldn't otherwise do. If we do that as a group, right, our network effect will be a force multiplier to us achieving the objectives of the tech pack. And so my challenge to each and every one of you is just add one. Just add one. Listen to a podcast that you wouldn't otherwise listen to, right? Just add one. And if you can do that, you can make a difference in this world, right? The other two levers are pretty simple. There's the partnership lever, where we're talking about how do we, partner with organizations that are doing this great work, right, with either time, talent, or treasure, right, and help them produce these great resources. And then the last lever is storytelling, like I've done here, is just go out and tell your story, right? And you can tell your story through a podcast. You can tell your story through a bespoke report. You can tell your story one to another, right? Each of these methodologies will actually help us make a difference in this world. And so that's kind of, my testimony for the Tech Pack. And I think it's a fantastic, easy thing to do. Just go ahead and you think of your +1 and share it with me. I would love to, share mine with you.
No, absolutely. I love it. I love it. Really do. It actually really leads nicely to my last question that I had here. It's different, but I think it's all about this network effect, and it's all about the +1. And it boils down to why we started Workato as a company, frankly, because a little bit we felt that in technology, people were very much focusing on the technology itself, on like what it does and does really well, but kind of almost forgetting a little bit of the adoption, like how hard it was actually to use, how hard that +1, how hard it was to get other people involved in the technology, if that makes sense. So our sense when we started Workato was almost like, hey, if we can do 80% of what the other tools do in it, but we can do it twice as easy to adopt, I think we have got a total winner of a technology. So I'm just curious how you think about this. Adoption of technology is a big deal, I think. What's your thinking of like kind of removing friction, easing, like making that +1 in a way, the adoption of technology in a company easier? What's your take on that?
I think that's a great a great question. And adoption to me is the seventh wonder of the world, right? And so when I think about adoption, I think about it this way. I think we've got to go from installation to realization of technology in our businesses. And the only way to get from installation to realization of the benefits and the outcomes that you really wanted to generate is through adoption and utilization. And so I think adoption is measured by, how many people within my target population for this particular technology are actually using it. But then I think you add on to that utilization, and how do I codify the best user, right, of that technology, and then take that best user's habits and behaviors, right, and then translate that across my entire adopted, universe of users, and make everyone better. So how do I lift the entire user pool, right? And so I think about both of those things, adoption and utilization, right? And how do we do that in technology? And so I think that also requires us to have new roles. And those new roles are, let's call it the digital anthropologist, right? Or the technology anthropologist, right? So we need to think about having and hiring and creating technology anthropologists, right? Who are going out there to see how our technology is being used in the real world, right? So they're going to use ethnography. They're going to use different methodologies to go out there and observe people using the technology, right? And then come back and help us create better technology that is much easier to use and much easier to adopt, right? And so if we can create those technology, anthropologists and hopefully, we get people around this kind of capability who can go out there and see how technology is actually being used in the real world, we can then maximize utilization and adoption. And so I think that's how I think about it. I think that's the way of the future, because again, the benefits of technology are only through adoption and utilization. In fact, I heard a great story, this idea, what are the benefits of an exercise bike, right? And so often, when you're buying your exercise bike and you're looking at it and you're saying, well, this bike comes with an online content, this bike has, the latest features. It actually gets updates online. It has automatic braking. It can speed up when I need it to speed up. So it has all these features, right? But features are not benefits, right? The actual outcome of an exercise bike is actually if you use it to exercise. And so if you're not using the bike to exercise and the exercise is not leading you to a healthier lifestyle, then the online thing that's just a feature, right? And so that's where adoption utilization is. Just think about that. So if I really want the outcomes that are visited on me because I have this exercise bike, I actually have to go exercise, right? And I have to actually use it, adopt the bike, use it, and then I get the outcomes of healthier living and lifestyle. So that's the same way with technology, right? The installation of the technology is like the installation of the bike, right? If you're not using it and producing those outcomes, it's just been installed.
Wow. Let me tell you, first of all, thank you, Earl, for being on the show. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I hope you did. I'm not sure if the audience noticed it, but we went through a lot of the things that the books talks about, the process, the growth, and the scale mindset. But we didn't even talk about it. We talked about jazz. We talked about anthropology. And I think it's just fascinating. I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom. I mean, you've seen your share of experience, and I think it's just fascinating. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you like what you heard, we do have a special offer for you. If you share this or any other episode of the podcast on LinkedIn with the hashtag TNAM for the new automation mindset, that's TNAM, our team will reach out to you and make sure you get a free hardcover copy of the book by our Workato CEO, Vijay Tella. Please make sure to rate today's episode, leave us a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the show so you will never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.